We'll refer back to when Al was talking, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, that was the permits. So where are we? We sent out the package, and in that package is a petition. Under the ordinances of the state of the county of Nassau, Nassau County needs to have petitions signed by in excess of 50% of the property owners here in the SAISSA boundaries in order to proceed with the project. Now, proceeding means going out and getting bids. The numbers that you've all seen, and you're going to see them again, are estimates. So the first thing that we need to do is, of course, get the signed petitions in excess of 50%. Then we will go to the county, and then the county will start the process of bidding on the construction, the vendors, and then they will also start the process of the financing. So that means all that financing stuff that you saw in the information that we mailed to you is all based on estimates, although there was a lot of time spent on those estimates. I'll tell you why they became a little bit more difficult than in prior years, but based upon estimates. So now we need to get final numbers to go forward. So that's what we need. We need the petition signed so we can go to the county, and the county can do what they're supposed to do. The project, hopefully we will start it in the early spring, the first part of May, and it will go on for about 10 weeks. This is what previous projects have done, and that's what we're going to do. You've seen these numbers. The couple of things, the takeaways. The first number is an estimate. It's Al's firm's estimate, based upon all the renourishments that are going on in the southeast United States, the involvement that he's had with prior renourishments. He's come up with an estimate of $20.5 million. We will say this, that if it's less than $20.5 million, yay, we're going to cheer, because we're going to only have to finance whatever it costs. So that is an awesome result, but we don't know until we go out for bid. However, if it's more than $20.5 million, you're off the hook, because we're only going to spend the maximum of $20.5 million. That means we have to make a decision whether we cut back the project, whether we don't bring as much sand in. We don't know what we're going to do. We've never had this situation, because every time, and there's no wood to knock on here, every time the actual proposal has been less than what the estimate has been. Now, I might jinx us for this coming year, but just so you know. So the other important takeaway from this brief slide is the record number of grants, amounts that we're receiving from the feds. This is the first time ever we've gotten FEMA money, and from the county, from the state. That $8 million, it's actually $8+ million, is the most we've ever received. And all these monies, by the time we get into the building of the renourishment, will all be under contract for us. Right now, they're appropriated by the state, agreed to by the feds, and will be contracted well before we get too far into this project. Okay, again, this is before interest and fees. Okay, this is historical. This is to give you an idea of what the assessment has been in the past, what the grant money has been in the past, and where we are now down to 2021. So 94, as you remember what Al said, we built the dune system, or we restored the dune system, probably a better way of stating it. So that required a lot of sand, a lot of assessments. Then we started doing renourishment. And the assessment, again, is basically net of the grants, but it was equal to what it cost in those days to do that. And so you say the total there was $12 million in 02. The total was about $10.5 million in 2011. And here we go up to $20 million in 2021. Well, what's the cause of that difference? Well, unfortunately, it's a very simple answer, and it's called supply and demand. The demand has been ferocious since Sandy. There are a lot of renourishments going out there, not only in the state of Florida, which we're impacted by the equipment that's used, but certainly by the southeast. We get up into South Carolina, in Georgia, and as they use the equipment, we don't have it. So there is a tremendous demand for beach renourishment at this point in time. And in the supply, Al tells me there's 4 qualified dredgers. Are we still at 4, Al? Still at 4 qualified dredgers to do the work that needs to be done. So that has pushed the cost up. Now, just so you know, we take advantage of the fact that we can do the renourishment during the summer, early summer, during turtle season. And you're all sitting there going, how the heck can we do that? Well, most of the other organizations most of the other beaches have turtles way in excess of our turtle population, and they can't do it. But because we've done it in the past and have the ability, through the people that we work with, is that we move the turtles, we protect the turtles, we do all the things that you're supposed to do so there's no damage done to the turtles. But it enables us to get a bit of a price break on doing it during the early summer months than it does if we had done it at a different time. Some people say we'll do it during the winter. Well, the wave action out there precludes us from having dredgers go out there and try to dig sand off the bottom. You cannot do it in the winter. So again, it's kind of the good news, bad news. The good news is that we can do it in a period of time where we think that the benefit to us is greater than doing it at a different time. So that's the historical, give you an idea. Now, this is going to be just a little not difficult to understand, but it's things like the MSBU. And why do you want to know about an MSBU? Well, you really don't, but it's important for us because in '93 when we formed SAISSA, the county formed an MSBU. An MSBU is something like, and I always forget exactly the definition of an MSBU, but it basically is the assessment for improvements done in a particular geographical area of the district. When this part it's the county. Well, why is that important? And by the way, we qualify for that, but why is that important? Well, it's important because the interest generated on the debt that we're going to incur is tax exempt. It's municipal interest. So the bankers love that. That's good. And you love it because it's a lower interest rate. The second part is that the county gets to put the assessment on your income, on your real estate tax bill. So that's what's allowed by being an MSBU. Well, to be an MSBU, you have to have a special benefit. We do, because we're protecting the beach. And you have to have a fair and equitable apportionment. That's the sticky part from the standpoint is that we will go out and we hired since 1994, our first one, an outside independent economic firm that deals with MSBUs. The name of the company was Fishkind. It is now PFM. Same person works with us though. And they devised a formula so that they created a fair and equitable apportionment to allocating the assessment that it takes to do the renourishment on the beach. And there's a few things for that fair and equitable apportionment. First of all, they look at it every year. Every year there's a major impact. So every year we do a renourishment, they look at it to make sure that it's still a fair and equitable apportionment. This year, they proposed a change. And the change related to the amount that we allocate to commercial. You'll see later on that everybody gets a piece of the action. Commercial gets some, that means Omni and the club, as well as the residential piece. In the past, we've always allocated an arbitrary 13.5% of the assessment to commercial. Well, the attorneys didn't like that this year. They got religion, whatever. They said you can't do that. That is arbitrary. So you have to have a methodology to do it. So our guy went back to the drawing board and created a methodology using equivalent residential units, which kind of puts them on par with the way we do residential. So then they ran it again, And so now the commercial, instead of getting a 13.5% allocation, gets a 12.7% allocation, a decrease of 5%. But again, this is a pot. You have, if one goes up, one goes down. So what happens is that they go down by 5%, and that means the residential somehow has to come up by 5%. Well, we looked at this, and we feel that the people living on the beach, yeah, you guys, the ones that living on the beach, the ones that always get nailed for all the big amounts, your assessment went up $48 as a result of this calculation, from 13.5% to 12.7%. And I'm using averages. You know, your particular house, I don't know what it's worth, but obviously the higher value houses are worth more than the lower value houses and get more of an assessment. So we did that. Okay, so that's kind of what that slide's all about, just to let you know that we made that change. This who pays what has been there forever. Since 1994, we've had the same methodology approach to who pays what. Both, as I mentioned, both residential and commercial pay. Everybody benefits to some degree. So there's amounts spread among everybody no matter where you're located. Then you get into the properties. Those properties that live on the beach, that are on the beach, oceanside, gets the highest allocation. The next highest allocation are the people that live east of A1A. The next goes to the west of A1A. And then the properties with the higher values get more of an assessment. That's been the fair and equitable apportionment from day one, and we still use it today. Okay, I'm going to just jump. Now I'm going to just jump down to this slide, because you've all seen, well, those that have received the package. Excuse me, is there anybody here that has not received the package in the mail? We have about 3 or 4. That just mail, Bill?
Hope so.
Hope so. We hope it's the mail carrier. I would say that if you haven't received one by the end of this week, please contact Bill Moore, and we will arrange to have your packet sent to you. But anyway, we have an analysis that's on one page. I just did 3 slides. This is the analysis that was sent out, where we list assumptions, the top part, and then we listed the amounts. But I'm going to just jump to this slide here, and then we'll kind of come back to the assumptions. The just value is the property appraiser's estimate of your value for real estate tax purposes. So it's the market value of your residence. Again, I'm going to talk about residence. Commercial also gets this allocation, but nobody's here is representing the commercial. Now, we have 2 lines. We have with cost sharing and without cost sharing. And then we have the neighborhood. We call them neighborhoods that we talked about before. Oceanfront, east of A1A, and west of A1A. Well, with cost sharing, we've never had this situation before. We're getting the money all up front, so to speak, because it's been appropriated and gone to contract by the feds and by the state. We know what we're going to get, okay? But we haven't got it yet. And the only way you get it is if you spend the money. So what we have to do is that we have to go to a bank, and we have to say, we need money to build the renourishment. And they'll say, okay, what do you need? So we say, well, here's what we'd like to have. We'd like to have an arrangement kind of like a line of credit or a construction loan. Everybody's built a house. You get the money when you need it. So what we hope to do, we think we can do this, we'll go through, we'll borrow the money, we'll pay the vendor will give us the canceled check to prove that we've paid them. Then we have to go to the state and say, Mrs. State, we've spent the money, we want the reimbursement. They will say, okay, we'll give you the money, we will take the money, and then we will pay off the debt that we borrowed. We'll reduce the debt that we borrowed in the first place to pay the vendor. Well, there's a schedule. Now that sounds very complex. Well, in a way it is complex, but it's estimable. And that's what we did for this first approach of with cost sharing. I can't read it. With cost sharing, the money has come in from the grant money to pay it down. At the end of the year, again, we're starting in early May, 10 weeks, done by the end of the year. By the end of the year, we'll have had it paid down to about $9.7 million, and that'll be over. We're doing a 9-year loan in total, so that'll be over the remaining period of that loan. And so that's with cost sharing. And we've done that analysis. We've gone line by line, when we have to make the payments, how can we get the money, and when we go back up to assumptions, I'll comment something else on that. But then, by the way, the county, we usually operate through the financial advisor to the county. He's a very important person because he or she gives us guidance as to how we ought to structure our loans, what we ought to ask for in the banks, helps us behind the scenes. Well, unfortunately, he unexpectedly passed away. So in the county, as of today, and maybe today they have one, does not have a financial advisor. So we have not been able to sit down with the financial side of the county. We've met with many county officials, and we've met with a bank, so to get some idea that what I'm telling you is certainly doable, but we haven't met with the financial advisor. We will be doing that very soon as they have one. Anyway, so we haven't met with the financial advisor. So without cost sharing, there is a possibility, not likely, we think the with cost sharing is likely, but there is a possibility that the bank may say, you know, I know you say you're getting the money from the county, from the states, from the state and the Fed, but you know, we're not really 100% sure that you're going to get it in a timely fashion, and so therefore, we'll loan you the money, but we'll loan you $20 million, the cost of the project. That's what we'll loan you. So, while we do not think this is likely, we have to at least tell you that there is this possibility that we may not be able to structure the loan under that cost-sharing scenario that I just mentioned, and we may have to structure the loan of the first-year loan would be $20 million, and then obviously the money that we receive from the state at that time would go against the outstanding balance, and the second-year assessment would be different, would be much, much lower. In the cost-sharing analysis, the assessment is the same year after year after year. The assessment on the cost sharing is about $1.5 million a year. If you went to the $20 million, it'd be $3 million a year. Big numbers, big changes. That's why we put the two columns in. We think it's cost sharing. That's the way we're betting. I need to tell you that I don't want you to, if something happens and it doesn't go the way we plan it, I don't want you to tell me that I didn't tell you that there is that possibility that we could go to the without cost sharing scenario. But we don't think so. Anyway, how do I go back? Can you go back? This guy here? Oh, there we go. These are the assessment. This is all on the handout sheet that you have or will have. Again, we've talked about all this 9-year amortization interest rate, collection fees. There's a 10% state required fees that goes into this calculation. So there's all that. This is what we did. The interesting point, one takeaway from here, as I mentioned to you, the annual debt is $1.5 million. The state and federal grants, we've seen the $11.2 million. Again, we pay the vendor, we get the receipt from the vendor that we paid it, and then we run to the state and we say, okay, state, give us the money. Well, in past practices, we've done this, obviously, in the past, it's taken about 30 days to get the money from the state. Well, in this calculation, we've said, you know, we need a little buffer in here. Let's go 60 days. 90 days, excuse me. We went 90 days. 30 is what we've experienced, but we went 90 days to be have a little bit of a contingency in there in case the state doesn't pay us as the way we think they'll pay us. And so in the Fed, usually we get the Fed in about 90 days. Well, we've gone 6 months with the Feds because we don't trust them. We don't trust them as much as we trust the state, that they will give us the money. So we've factored in a bit of a contingency, and all this affects, if you think it through, it affects the interest that you pay because we'll have the debt outstanding for a longer period of time. So the interest will be a little bit more. So, but again, that's what arrives at the debt service of $1.5 million a year. and that's the 9.7. I think I mentioned that. And then that's the 3 million. Okay, that was that one. Hopefully people have an understanding. Okay, the types of assessment. Yes, there are two. And we've had some of these questions by email. There's the capital assessment, is the one we just talked about. That's called capital assessment. It's the way SAIS cap. That's what shows on your real estate tax bill. It's a separate line item. A next line item, by the way, the comments I want to make under there is that you haven't had one of those since 2015. Why? Well, because the debt in 2011 was over 8 years. That would have taken you to 19. However, we got money from the state. We got it 5 months into the project. Here, we're getting it at the beginning of the project. Last Renourishment, we got it 5 months into the project. We used the money to pay off the remaining capital assessment. So you had none. So the last one you paid was 2015. Okay, the 2021, that 1.5 million that's allocated to everybody based on that neighborhood concept will go on your real estate tax bill in November of 2021. There is a second line item on your bill, real estate tax bill, and that's called the maintenance. Maintenance assessment runs about $400,000 a year. It's accumulated. The costs, the major costs are the monitoring services that Al mentioned before. Every year they go out and they take a look at the beach to see where we are and report back to the people that give us permission to run the permit, to have the permit. And so it's administrative costs of SAISSA, it's permitting costs, but basically it's monitoring costs. And that's why it's so much less than the capital cost. But it is a cost, and so you'll have two lines. And you currently are receiving a maintenance assessment on your tax bill. All right. You've probably asked this question to yourself many times. And we've talked about it at the board level many times. There's no question that we have a robust beach. No question about it. And the reason is because we've done everything that we've done since 1994. And we want to keep the robust beach. So what we look at is what additional factors should we take into consideration as to why we should do the beach in 21. And you've seen the engineers' estimates about where that design beach is going to be. And again, we have a whole year to go. And so you have some idea of the impact of the erosion on our design beach. Well, in the past, we've renourished after 8 years, 9 years. This time it'll be 10 years. 10 years with 2 hurricanes. Long period of time. Al mentioned the recreational space. One of the really important items is down kind of at the bottom, and maybe I should have put this up top, is the state money will expire, we think, potentially expire in June of 2022. Can we get an extension? Maybe. Do we want to take a chance? No. The second is the future grant applications will apply a different criteria. Right now, the criteria for going to the state saying we want money is that there's a ranking system. And Al's very helpful in getting us the highest possible ranking that we can get. But it's kind of a black and white. If you have this, then you get 2 points, and that helps your ranking. If you have this, it's 2 points. There's really not that much subjective about the ranking system. Well, we ranked in 19 when we asked for this money, number 2 in the state. There were 25 to 30 inlets and beaches and other people asking for money on that list. And we were number 2. Well, that's awesome. Now, to be open, everybody got the money this last time because the state had the money. $50 million they gave to the beach people. Well, but we were still number 2, and we got one of the most amounts, the highest amounts, if I use right English. So that's great. And if we kept that system, we'd feel comfortable that we'd be back up into that top tier and asking for money. However, the state has come out with a proposed change. And that proposed change is to base the giving of money, you were saying a better word from giving, the allocation of the money to people that have the most economic benefit from the expenditure. The state believes there's economic benefit from renourishing beaches. They did an analysis that says in total there's like about a 5-to-1 ratio. That means there's 5 and 1% market value to 5 times the cost that they spend on beaches. Well, they're going to ask each individual county, beach inlet, beach, anybody asking for money, they're going to ask us to run a calculation as to why it's economic benefit, why there is an economic benefit to get the money from the state to renourish our beaches. Well, we think we can do that, but we're concerned that the guys down south, the big areas, big economic impact, might be able to present a little bit better case than we can up here in Nassau County. Look, this is speculation at this time, but it is an issue and it is out there, and it's something that went into the consideration of whether or not we should do the renourishment in 21. In addition to all the other, to the engineering reasons for doing it, there's money reasons as to why we believe that 2021 is the right year to do it. All right, these next 2 slides, I showed them at the other meetings. They're my favorite slides. This is, what is this one? This is Villano Beach. Villano Beach is just on the other side of Ponte Vedra, one of our beaches, right? Well, you see where the sand is, right? See, it's right there by the building. Okay, this picture was taken by the FDEP, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Environmental Protection. They took this picture and they used this in a series of presentations around the states as to what an engineered beach can do, which is, oh, lo and behold, us. We're the engineered beach. So they took this picture and they compared it to that picture, and they used it in all their presentations around the state, and it's kind of like the picture that's worth 1,000 words. They have no beach left, damage to the upland property, damage to their buildings. We're okay. But again, we're okay because the way the Category 3 hit the beach. If we get a Category 5, ladies and gentlemen, and it hits the beach directly, it's a whole different ballgame. But we don't. We don't have one. Okay. That's the summary. Excuse me. This is the stuff that should have been in that package, and I apologize for the mail service. I'm not getting it to you. There's on the right, on my right, your left, I guess, is the petition that I'm asking you to sign. We need to get that to the county. I'd like to get it to the county in the next couple of months. Yeah, I do. Thank you, Al. Excuse me.